Hi, I'm Alan Gordon and welcome to another video. Today I'm going to talk to you about a topic that is extremely important regardless of what you're selling. And it's identifying the decision maker. Okay? It should be pretty clear why that's important, but I'm going to talk to you, I'm going to break it up into two sections. Number one, I'm going to talk to you about a husband and wife or a small business where there's only a few players. Okay, it's a little bit easier to identify the decision maker and then move forward. Then I'm going to talk to you about corporate sales, B2B sales, which have a longer sales cycle and have a formal or informal decision process that you may are probably not aware of. So I'm going to share with you the different elements of the decision process, and then I'm going to, at the end, or towards the end, I'm going to actually go over some very, very specific questions that you can ask to get at the decision process, okay? Now, when in a husband and wife scenario, or say my wife and I've never one time had a salesperson who took the time or even felt it was important to identify the decision maker. They either sell to both of us equally, or they sell to me and ignore my wife, thinking that I'm the decision maker, or they sell to my wife, ignoring me, thinking that I'm just going to do whatever she says. The reality, sometimes I do exactly what my wife wants. Sometimes I'm the decision maker, and my wife, there's only one vote, and if I decide we're going to do this, we do it. And sometimes there are other things that we have to come to a mutual decision process on. So if you're selling to a husband and a wife, or a small business, it might be a business owner and a few other employees, simply ask the question, how do you guys go about making a decision like this? Tell me how you guys make a decision like this. Don't ask who's the decision maker, because my wife will point to me and I'll point to my wife. Don't ask a closed-ended question. Ask the question, how do you guys go about making a decision like this? Once you've identified the decision, we'll share with you our decision process. Once you've identified the decision process, now you can proceed. Don't ignore one or the other. You still need to communicate and maintain relations with both, but now you can start to identify my wife's decision criteria, my decision criteria. I may say she makes the decisions about the design, I make the decision about the money. You can talk to my wife about the design, you can talk about me about the money, and so that makes you a lot sharper in how you make your presentation, how you uncover needs of each of the stakeholders and the decision makers, okay? So that's pretty simple, but once you have understood the concept of selling to the decision maker, you realize that it makes absolutely no sense to proceed in the sales process without first, early on, understanding the decision process. I hope that makes sense to you, because once you've done it one time and you see how effective it is, you realize you're wasting your time if you don't understand the decision process. So let's now get into B2B corporate sales, where it's much more involved. The sales cycles tend to be longer, and there are more behind-the-scenes decision makers and behind-the-scenes stakeholders than you're probably aware of, okay? So typically, in a corporate environment, I'm going to make contact with a key person. And that person's going to love my solution, they're going to love me, they're going to want more information, they're going to read up on it, they're going to ask me questions. And here's the real key, when I call, they answer the phone. They actually take my call. This person is wonderful. I finally found someone in this company who will listen to me. So this is what average salespeople do. This is what we sell to that person. Okay, we give them our presentation, we send them our brochures, we do the quote. And then my boss will come and say, hey, Alan, how do you feel about that quote? It's 75 to 100%. Definitely going to close that. He loves it, loves the solution. And here's the unfortunate thing. Sometimes that person turns around, goes to their boss, and gets it approved. So I think I'm doing a good job. But unfortunately, the majority of the time, I lose the project, and I can't really explain why. I thought he loved it. What happened? Okay, what happened was that behind the scenes, there's an invisible decision process. And now it's your job to uncover that decision process. Most salespeople sell to this easy person to sell to. And that works sometimes. If it didn't work at all, we would all have to work harder. But the reality is it does work sometimes. But the big difference between the average sales guy who's making a living and the really top salespeople in that company are the ones that have understood the concept of discovering the decision process before they start their sales process. So here's how you do it. I'm going to share with you several roles. The first role is the internal champion. That's the person I've been talking to. I've been talking to you about. They're friendly. They love you. They love their solution. They love everything. If they ask questions, they answer the phone. They're great. They're going to take your proposal to the team for you. But you can't allow them to do that. What you have to do is you have to find out more about the decision process. Behind the internal champion, there's another role which are called stakeholders. These are people or departments or groups that are going to be impacted by this purchase. I need to know who those people are so I can identify not just my internal champion's needs, but I also want to identify who the stakeholders are and what their particular needs and requirements are. What are their decision criteria? What is the benefit? What parts of this solution are they going to love? What parts of the solution are not so important? So I need to understand all the stakeholders behind the scenes. Then off to the side, there will usually be one person, I'll call him or her, the financial analyst. This person doesn't care about your solution, they care about cost, they care about price. Okay, they'll say things like, oh, we can't afford to do this right now, or this isn't really a good time because our budget doesn't cover it, or this is way too expensive for us to even consider, or if they're looking at multiple quotes and proposals, we should probably choose this one, it's the cheapest. So they're concerned, and it's their role in the company, there's nothing wrong with it, it's their role in the company to keep costs down, to identify price and cost issues, expense issues. So the financial analyst usually can shoot something down by saying it's too expensive. So you have to understand who the financial analyst is and address their needs and concerns. What is their vision? What do they think would be a good expense? Help me understand more about your perspective so I can identify if this solution is going to be a good match. So I want my internal champion, I want all my stakeholders, and I want my financial analyst. And finally, behind all of that, and it could be one of these people or it could be somebody else behind the scenes, I want to know who the decision maker is. Okay? Because if my proposal doesn't meet the needs and decision criterias and ideas of the decision maker, I have no chance. Because everyone's going to say, oh, this is really great, this is really great. They're going to go to the decision maker. Oh, it doesn't do this, so I'm not interested. So I have to discover not only all the other players, but also where the power lies, who the final decision maker is, and make a very strong effort to understand their needs, their decision criteria, their priorities. I hope that makes sense. It should make sense to you. Once you sell this way, you realize that it makes absolutely no sense to make progress in a sale without identifying the power structure. Let's now talk about early in the process how you can identify the stakeholders, the financial issues, and the decision maker. And I want you, and this is important, I want you to be assertive early in the sales process. You want to assert your right to communicate to the broader decision team, formal or informal. Okay? I'm sure if the internal champion says, no, you just present it to me, and then I turn around and present it to our committee. And so they want to hold their cards close to their vest, and they don't want to share the decision process. Fine. What I say is, being assertive, I say, okay, I understand. I handle the objection. 1, 2, 3. Please watch the video on objections. I understand exactly what you're saying. Okay, your process is that you communicate with the different vendors, and then you bring the proposals back to the decision team. I get that. But I'm sure you can understand that our process, from a time and cost perspective, works a lot better if we have the opportunity to talk to all the stakeholders, to all the decision makers, to all the people who are impacted, so that our proposal can actually address all of their needs. And sometimes they will open up the decision process, and sometimes they're going to say, no, you need to explain this to me, and then I explain it. Well, at least you've tried. Now you can explain it to them, or you can walk away, because you can say, you know what, my proposal's just not going to be very good. It's just going to be about you, and I'm going to choose as a vendor not to participate, or you can participate. Okay? The way you participate is you say, okay, since you're not going to introduce me to all the stakeholders and the decision makers, tell me What are their concerns? You know, what in the engineering department, what is it about this project that's important to them? In the HR department, what is it about this project that they're going to consider? What are their decision criteria? What are their priorities? In the, manufacturing and shipping departments, what are their priorities for this solution? So try to identify all the stakeholders and ask your gatekeeper. Now this internal champion is now a gatekeeper. They've turned into a gatekeeper. Ask your gatekeeper to think for all of the other stakeholders and for the decision maker, what are the criteria? What are the priorities? What's important to them? Now let's go over a few questions that you can ask early in the process to help you be assertive in identifying the decision maker. One of the best questions you can ask early on is, hey, can you walk me through your decision process for a project like this? Or can you tell me a little bit about your decision process? Or who are all the stakeholders that are going to be involved in this decision? Easy questions that you can ask up front, and it broadens the scope of now who you're talking to. Now, how can we get all these other folks on the phone or in the room when I give my presentation? Because I really want to understand their needs before we make a proposal or quote our solution to you. It's important to me. I'm sure you can understand that our process works better if we have all the stakeholders in the room, including the financial folks, so we can address all their needs and our proposal will be spot on. How can you help me organize that and get everyone together? So that's one approach. What budget is this coming from? Or what department's budget is this project going to be coming from? Or who controls the budget for this proposal, for this project? Because that's really interesting, because if I can understand their priorities, I can help craft my proposal to meet their needs. At the end of the day, who actually signs off on this contract? That's a question that you can ask to actually identify the single person who actually might be the decision maker. Sometimes it might be a purchasing person who's not really involved. They actually are the ones who sign the contract. But what you're trying to get is, at the end of the day, who does everybody turn to for the final decision? Who has the authority to sign off on this project? Well, you've got all the stakeholders, all the financial people, everybody that's involved, but who do they all turn to for the final sign-off? Those are kinds of great questions. If you're talking to a financial analyst and says, no way we can afford this in our budget, you say, well, we've got a really good solution. I know you're looking at several other solutions. Do you always choose the least expensive option? Or do you look at other factors? And of course, they'll tell you, oh, we don't always choose the cheapest. Usually, though, but we do consider other factors. Oh, okay. Tell me what those other factors are. And now you can start to gather information, even from the naysayer, the financial analyst, who doesn't want to spend the money. Anyway, this is a critical topic. It's called selling to power, identifying the decision maker. And again, this is not for beginning salespeople, but once you start a career in sales, you'll start to realize that many of your quotes are being rejected because you sold to the wrong person. Identify all the stakeholders, identify the decision process, identify that formal or informal team of people that are going to be making this decision, get them all in the room or all on the telephone, however you're selling, get them together, find out all of their needs, and then present your proposal. In particular, pay attention to the needs, priorities, and decision criteria of the most powerful person, or in your case, the person who's going to sign off on your deal. Hey, I hope that's helpful. Every day, I want you to choose one sales skill, incorporate it into your repertoire, become more and more comfortable with it, until you, day by day, week by week, month by month, become the great salesperson you want to be. Thanks.